Everybody, so we're going to get started with taking a look at what people have been working on for their character design. This is always where things get really interesting, where you get a chance to start seeing your idea come to life. So just a few general comments. The most important thing that we're working on in this particular assignment in terms of the technical stuff is layer masks. So depending upon where you're at with layer masks, you may need to do a little revisions. Some people probably need to, work a little bit more on them, but we'll kind of go over them and I'll try to demonstrate during the critique on various people's projects if there's any kind of sort of extra tips I can provide for making layer masks work well and make them easier to understand if you're still. I know I heard from people who were working on the textbook exercise that they found that the layer masks perhaps were the most challenging thing. And it's really just once you get layer masks, they are really great, and I just love them. They're my favorite part, really, of one of my favorite parts of Photoshop is because I just think they're so cool, and you can do so much with them. But the real important reasons why we're working with layer masks is so that you are not going to have to, so you don't edit the photograph that you are working on, so it remains intact, and you just make changes to the layer mask, or adjustment layers are the same thing. They're non-destructive. And then when you're working in the so-called real world, if you're on a job or working for somebody on a Photoshop project, you'll look pretty impressive knowing layer masks. By contrast, you will look like you're not trained in Photoshop if you don't use layer masks. It is so important. I think it's kind of the central concept in terms of the technical stuff. So it's worth learning it and practicing it. Okay, and then on the character designs, at this point we have a few more weeks, several more weeks. Let's see. So we're in week 3. We have 3, 4, 5, 6. So 4 more installments of this project, including this week. And so we've got a lot more time to work on this. So this is really the first version of the project, and then we're going to keep working on it. And so things we're going to work on later on, we'll work on, things like color and backgrounds and more interesting text and all those kinds of things. And this week the main thing is, as I mentioned before, is getting the layer masks in so that all of your photos have layer masks, and then potentially sort of working on we'll sort of look at, do all the photographs look good? Are there any photographs maybe you could replace at this point? And then I'll do kind of a quick review of the character as well, like the design, see if there's any kind of big areas that might improve the look of the character, make it more like a character, knowing again that we will be doing a lot more work on the overall design in later weeks. Okay, so I think that's it. I hope that you had some fun with this project. I know it's fun, but it's challenging. So again, just to repeat what I said before, practice practice the layer masks as much as you can. Even just grab a photograph, nothing to do with your project, and add a layer mask to it, and see how it works. There's also a lot of amazing tutorials out there on layer masks in Photoshop, since it is such a common task, and a lot of people are looking for information on it. So don't hesitate to go to YouTube or Adobe to kind of keep building your skills in that, and hopefully in the group critique we'll have a chance to look at some more ins and outs of layer masks as well. Hey, Tiffany, so I just read in your post that you needed to change a few photos because of you wanted different proportions and the quality wasn't great. That's great. That's exactly what you want to be doing at this point, is evaluating your photographs. And because the better quality your photographs are in terms of just the kind of the quality of the photograph in terms of the lighting, the color, the clarity, the kind of angles and the way the object looks, the better your character is going to look. And that's really true of pretty much anything you do in design, is that the photographic quality, like for example, if you're doing a magazine ad and you put a photo in, the better your photo, I mean, it takes so much of your work as a designer out of it. If you have a good quality photograph, then it's just going to make everything look good, which is why, stock photography um, is such a big market, is because as designers, if you don't take your own photographs, and a lot of people, most people don't, because it's another skill set really, and you need a good photograph. If you go to a stock photo site, like for example, like one of the best is Getty Photographs, then you know that it's that photograph's going to be just perfect. It's going to be like just, I have a friend whose sister works, I think she's used to work at Getty, and she did all of the kind of processing of photographs where, correction and removing little things and making it look beautiful, from a raw photograph to like a photoshopped one. So anyhow, I didn't mean to go on that long of a tangent, but that by way of saying good quality photographs, of course you can make your own changes in Photoshop. You can do a lot of fixing, but still the better quality, the photograph, the easier it'll be to do that in Photoshop, and the less you'll have to do. Okay, so good. So I think your character looks pretty good already. So the first thing I always do at this stage is just to kind of look, so you can go, so I'm right here on any of these layer masks. You can see right here that your layer mask, it's pretty easy to see here that you've got a mask, and then you've got your original photograph here. And we can see that you can just sort of right click directly on the layer mask, and that you can see it. You can see the original photograph, which is great. That's exactly what you want to have here. That's the first major step. Then the next thing I typically will do is somewhere, on the bottom here, I will, on the bottom layer or background layer, I'll just kind of take a black rectangle, and throw it back here, just to kind of look. This is something that as you're working on layer mask, you would get to see the, sort of the way the layer mask is looking in terms of the edges. But depending upon the background of your photograph, like for example, that bean photograph we looked at had a white background, so you're not going to be able to see how the masking worked, if there's anything you need to work on if you have white on white. So this is just a good kind of check. And then, of course, you can just delete that or get rid of it later. I put that on the background layer. So in fact, I'm going to just change this. I'm going to add a new layer. Hold on a second. I just added a new layer so I can turn it off later, or delete it, whatever is needed. Okay, so something I also do, and you've probably done as well, is just if you zoom in, sometimes you can really see, your edges a little bit better. You don't have to zoom in too. I mean, basically, with pixels, pixels are like this interesting thing. It's like very different from vectors in Illustrator, whereas pixels are very fuzzy. When you see the edge of something, it kind of like fades away, and it, kind of like merges in the background it's not a crisp kind of clean line. So when you're masking things, you're trying to just give the illusion that it looks like that was the way it was photographed when you remove the background. And that's really what you're trying to do here, is create that illusion. And that's what the Photoshop mask tries to do. Photoshop tries to figure out how to do that. And then, you kind of can come in here and sort of look at things and kind of decide, yeah, did Photoshop do a good job at masking? And maybe there's something I can do. Let's just look at this corn body here. Maybe right here, can you see like there's a tiny bit of, can you see how it kind of got a little bit rough there? But you know what? I actually think it kind of looks like the corn, the way it would look anyhow. So I kind of maybe would just leave that, but just kind of pointing it out. Okay, so this is something, can you see right here, this white line here? This is probably a part of, let's see here, maybe the celery leg. See, I think it's the celery leg. Oops. Where's that celery leg? Why is that moving? Sometimes, hold on a second here. Okay, for whatever reason, I think it's probably some kind of user error on my part. But you can see if I turn off the celery leg, you can see that that little white line here just disappeared. Okay, what that actually white line is the edge of the original photograph, that you have down here. It's this little white edge, and when you mask, I don't know why this happens sometimes, but sometimes you get left with a little white line, and it's nothing you've done. When you masked it, it just somehow happens. And again, I don't know, really what, sometimes it happens in some people's photographs. So when that happens, what you can do here, and if you don't mind, I'm going to use um, your project as like a demo of how to fix that. So if you see that in your photograph, or in your PSD, how you can fix it is by going directly on the layer mask. So when I click on the photograph, here I'm clicking on the photograph of the celery leg, and now I can just go and kind of modify things directly on the photograph itself, right? Like I could do an adjustment layer, or whatever I wanted. But if I click on the layer mask itself, right over to the right, then I can actually edit directly on the layer mask. Okay, when you're editing on the layer mask, then can you see here that there's black and white in the layer mask? So the layer mask actually just has black and white, and actually has gray too, if it's transparent. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to paint directly on the layer mask, which we've selected here, and we're going to paint out these white lines. And how are we going to do that? If you look at the layer mask itself, the layer mask shows that black masks and white hides. Black masks and white hides. So we're going to paint with black. Literally, we're just going to grab the paintbrush tool here and paint these out with black. And you'll see what I mean here. So you want to have black in the foreground position here in the color picker, so you can do that with these arrows. So I want to have black here like it was, and then I'm just going to grab a paintbrush tool here, and I'm using the bracket tool, the right bracket tool on my keyboard. You can also use um, the size here, right here, to make it bigger, but just a shortcut here. So that's big enough, and so all I'm going to do now is, you can see here, I'm going to get rid of these lines. You can see I'm just kind of painting over them. I can go all the way up there, get rid of them. It's going all the way down here, so I could sort of, I'm just going to grab that. Can you see how I fixed that? Now that little white line, it's not showing up. It wasn't showing up on our white background. But let's say we put it later on next week, when we add another kind of background here, maybe some kind of colored background, it could show up. Maybe not if it's light, but it probably would show up. So it's good to kind of go and check and see if you can fix that. But that's the only thing I found in here. Okay, so let's just keep looking at the design here. You've got the name. I wanted to just look at the head here. Overall, I think your design is looking really good. Somehow this kale, it feels so. You can see it's a little cut off up here. Can you see how and I was noticing that how it feels like it's kind of ends abruptly. So I might try to see if you can find another photograph. And you also, because it's a little blurry, let's bring it back here. See, that edge is kind of blurry. It also makes it hard to select, because the blur doesn't select correctly. So I love it. It's so cute. But if you can find something else for the head, like for a little hat, maybe he doesn't, in some ways, maybe he doesn't even need a hat, because you've got this little kind of stem coming up from the tomato, which is awfully cute. So maybe you want to just leave it that way. But I'll leave that up to you. But I might work on that. The last thing is, for the legs, it's always fun to make the arms and legs different, but one way that I think that the characters start to come to life is by making them appear like a body. It doesn't have to be a human body, but animals or, human bodies tend to have symmetry. Like you have the arms the same here. I might choose either to go with the celery or with the carrot, whichever one you like best, and just duplicate it to make it like the leg part. Um, oh, I don't think there's, oh, so it looks like maybe there isn't a, so it looks like the carrot leg doesn't have a layer mask, so you might want to just double check that. But you know, so okay, so let's just duplicate it here. So we've got two carrot legs now, and so we can take this one and just move it over here. So you can just do something like that, and then it'll just make it look a little bit more like a body when you have that symmetry, like you have for the rest, like the feet and the arms. Okay, so I think that's it. That's all I wanted to comment on. I think you're off to a really good start here. It seems like I talked about a lot, but I was just, you know, uh, I think there's very little that at this point you need to change. Now I may have more feedback, and you next week, every week I tend to, you know, push the character just a little bit more, but you maybe not, and you'll probably want to just, as you keep working on it, feel free to just make changes yourself. You know, that if you go, oh, you know, I think I want to change this a little bit, I'm sure you've got good instincts for doing that. So feel free to keep playing with that. Okay, Ian, yes, the Magic Wand tool is really a great tool to start making selections, isn't it? Okay, let's see. So let's just zoom out just a bit here. Okay, yeah, okay, so just you can notice here that I always have the layers panel open, because you can just, with the layers panel, you can just see so much information about how the file was created. And I can see automatically here all of your layer masks, which is awesome. Very nice. And let me just zoom in a little bit. And I also think your character design, yeah, I really like the way your character's coming along. All of the details. I love the cape. I just think that's such a nice touch here to give it a sense of movement, and the pencil. And yeah, it's coming along. So I'm going to do what I did before here, which is just add that black background, see if there's anything we can work on. And you can do that too. You know, you can have that black background just hanging out in your file, and you can turn it on and off this week. So overall, I think your layer masks look pretty good all through here. They look very nice. I might just clean up this area right here, because this is probably going to show up later on. So how I usually kind of figure out where to clean, I mean, because it probably makes sense to you. You probably know more than I do, because I'm sort of guessing at these layers. But so I kind of like, when you right click on it, you always see the layers below. So I can see, okay, there's layer 9 that's on top, then there's layer 11, and then the background. So I just kind of select here. It's probably this one, layer 9. You know, this is where too, sometimes like labeling, if you want to go through the, you know, the time to label things, I just double clicked on there. That can also make it faster to find the layers, because you go, oh, that's the arm or the head or whatever. You know, you can see it when you're, you know, when you click on it. So that's this element right here. So you can just go through here and, you know, just do what I did with Tiffany's, is just click on your layer mask, make sure it's selected, head over to your paintbrush tool, and you can just start painting this out. It really helps to zoom in. I'm not really zoomed in here enough, but you know, you can make the paintbrush bigger, smaller, zoom in, you know, really as big as you can, and then you can go through and kind of clean these up. And this is just, you know, Photoshop kind of does what it can. Like the best, you can go through here and see where that's on a different layer, so you could just do that process. You know, Photoshop does the best it can to make a layer mask, and then you can do kind of different things here. Like you can tell I do a lot of work directly on the layer mask, because I sometimes find that's just, you know, easiest to do. So that's what I do there. I think that's all you really need to do for your layer mask. I'm going to turn this off now. In terms of your character design, I think that looks really good. I would just say, I would just work on, first of all, maybe making your character a little bit bigger so it fills the screen just a little bit more. Put your text in here somewhere, you know, the name from week 1 at the top or the bottom, wherever you want to put it. Just placeholder text, just kind of grab the text tool, and then just wherever you want, just pop your text in. It doesn't matter what your style of text is at this point. It literally is just a placeholder. So I would also, I love the cape. I kind of feel at this point that I want to see the entire cape. Feels like it's cut off here. So I might actually change. So I kind of play with the size of your or the proportions of your canvas, it almost feels like, first of all, like what you could do here is, so you can either make your character a little bit bigger, but I kind of be inclined to crop it down just a little bit and make it bigger. So, you know, kind of it frames your character a little bit more, you know. Um, let me see about this cape. Where's the cape again? Yeah, okay, you've got the whole cape there. So that's great. Okay. All right, so yeah, so carry on. I think you're in good shape, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, Allison, so it looks like you have two, let me just see what you said here. Yeah, okay, so here's, it looks like this is maybe your working file. So you have your masks done, and then it looks like you have another file here where you have the character started to develop here, which is great. Now, something though I've noticed is that it looks like your layer masks from that file to this file disappeared. I'm not sure how that happened. It could be the way that you moved them. What I'd probably recommend doing is actually just going back. It can sometimes be a little tricky to move layer masks to another file. It's not impossible, it's just that it looks like, you know, it might be easier to work directly on this file right here since you've got your layer masks. So, you know, put your background back here, and then, you know, just maybe arrange everything in here, resize and arrange it all, because you definitely want to have your layer masks in your file, okay? So I'm going to, actually, so, let me go back here. Just going to take a quick look at your layer masks here. And they look pretty good. Yeah. So, yeah, so they look pretty good. They look pretty clean. So I would, again, I would just, you know, use this this the other document to arrange things. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to just talk a little bit about your design. And yeah, I think it's starting to come along. I like the body. I think that's really great to have the the garbage can as your body. Now, do you know why there's this little black, how did that happen here? There's a little black kind of line here. Okay, so you want to so anything that's not a photograph, you cannot use for this assignment. Um, so maybe you don't need that kind of face. Like, so maybe you don't need that a face. Maybe you can just make it the design work with the elements that you have. So the garbage bag. Oh, I love garbage bags. One thing I would try though is a garbage. Like I think I mentioned this in my feedback for the previous assignment, is to find a garbage bag that has no graphics on it. You know, if you need to, just find something from the internet, from Google Images, because having a lot of graphics, and I would do the same here with the Snickers. We'll talk about that in a minute, because you want to make sure things are as plain as possible, because graphics tend to, first of all, they take over your design so that they start branding your design in a way that you want to make sure you're branding it. Like this is, you know, Garbage Dump Dan, so that's who he should be, not the branding from your items. And also the forms have to be as dimensional as possible. And again, graphics tend to flatten it. Okay, so I would find a different one, but I like the idea. This is a great way you've placed it. So just find something else and replace, you know, use that. The Snickers, I would also, you know, probably just remove that. You know, and also, you know, like I mentioned to other folks, like symmetry is a great thing to work with here. So rather than, you know, different arms, maybe just the same arm. You know, you could just throw this over here. You've got the oops, you've got the masking done, so you know you have this cute little arm you can just add in here. You know, so that's what I would work on here. The straw legs, they're you know they're cute. If you can find a bigger, thicker straw, you know how they have thin straws and thick straws? If you can find a thick straw, that would, I think, work a little bit better. Because, you know, even like when you add the background, already it's a little light visually. Um, and when you add the background, it can tend to get a little lost. So the thicker you can, like ideally almost as thick at this as the cigarettes would be great. I love these cigarette arms. This is where, okay, can you see the branding on here? It's kind of faint and sort of really blends in. So it works really well, I think, as part of it. It's just a wonderful element. It's so evocative. I can just sort of smell tobacco smoke and, you know, that kind of old cigarette smell, which is really great. Okay, so that's what I'd work on here. I think you're, you know, going in a good direction, and just did a little more work. I think you'll be right on track. Okay, Leah. All right. Okay, so your question is, should I add something? Well, let's see here. So first of all, again, we're just going to check your layer masks. They look really, really good so far. I'm also going to do what I did before here. I'm just going to pop in, just put in this black, and yeah, they look pretty good, don't they? So maybe a few areas here that you could maybe clean up right here. And again, I would just use the technique of the layer mask that I mentioned for masking. But overall, you hear it, you know, maybe a little bit more in the masking area. Something like this too. So we could also try, so you know, you've seen me do the layer mask where I start hiding things manually directly on the layer mask. Sometimes when you have like like a whole long edge like this, sometimes maybe you want to see if Photoshop can help you with that. So let's see here. Okay, so in the layer mask right here, so we're on the photograph now. We're going to go to the layer mask. Now, on the layer mask, if you just double click on it, click, we're going to open up the properties area for the mask itself. And in here, you can do a lot of really kind of quick things to see if Photoshop can help you find that edge, because that's what this whole area is designed to do, is basically to find the edge and to kind of clean it up a little bit. And again, Photoshop kind of operates on its little algorithm, so sometimes it works really well. Sometimes you kind of have to help it with manual fixing, but we're always going to try to let Photoshop do all the work here. So so for here, there's really, I think, two things you could do here. One, you could go right, like I always typically start at the top and work downwards. Now, of course, you can, under the view mode here, what you can do here is pick the mode, like what you want the background to look like, that you're fixing it. And this doesn't actually have anything to do with what the background looks like later. This is just purely for you to see what you can fix. So so on black here, I actually just you know, keep it, because I have already got the black background there. I don't really actually need to do anything there. I just wanted to demonstrate what that area is. It's just for a way for you to kind of see better what you can fix. Now then I would go to the next phase in here, which is edge detection, and I would just see, okay, is Photoshop going to help me find that edge? And I just move it gently to the right. Can you see it's actually working really pretty well here? So I move kind of to the right. Okay, there, maybe that'll be until all the white is gone. Did it work? It worked pretty good. Okay, so you could also, I'm going to move back here. I'm just going to return this. The other thing you can do is just, there's something called the edge detection tool, which is automatically turned on. It used to be something you had to pick, and now it actually just exists. And you can actually kind of click and drag, that's what I'm doing here, over the edge here, and see, sometimes that is also a way to manually pick it up. I actually think that I'm going to undo that. I think the edge detection did a better job here. So let's just do that. You got less of that kind of weird haloing. And then that's it. So we're just going to click OK here, and it's adjusted the mask now. Okay, so that's what you can do on anywhere. You could even try it up here and see if that works there. But you could definitely fix these chords. Chords are always difficult. They're always difficult. So okay, so that's the main thing here with the layer masks. Now let's move on to your design. I think it's starting to look really good here. If possible, I think it would be great to figure out a way to make these chords look more attached. And I'd be inclined to do what you did here, which is to move the layers behind the torso. Let's see. So take your whole thing, your whole guy here, and move it, let's see, behind. I'm dragging it down below. You can see it dragged below, behind the torso. Connecting, connecting arms and legs and such, sometimes you can kind of get it to work on top of it, like on the object, kind of a way of pushing it in somehow. And sometimes just putting it behind works really good for this assignment. Okay, okay, I think that's the main thing. I think maybe, just like I've mentioned to other folks, I might choose to make one of these elements your foot rather than both. And I would probably be inclined to go with this element since it already has a natural foot. It's really cute. And I don't know, do you actually need these guys, these sticks? To me, they don't seem like they belong as part of the character, so I'd be inclined to take that off. Because you're going to have a background later, so you actually don't need to have anything in the background at this point. Finally, make sure you got your name somewhere. Just doesn't matter where, can be just some simple text, place it somewhere. And I think that's it. I think you're definitely going in a good direction, and I don't think you need to add anything. I just think working with what you have existing is going to work really well. Russell, so yeah, so you mentioned that there was something going on with your file. Let's just see. Thank you for posting the screenshots. And when you click, okay, so when you click on the layer label text, it shows the undamaged caricature. Okay, so let's see here. I'm not sure if that's what you meant. Let me just go back here. When you click on the layer text, I wonder, let me just turn off that layer. That's weird. I don't really understand. So let me just see your screenshot here. Here we go. Okay, so that's what it's supposed to look like. Yeah, okay. I'm going to look at the PSD for just a minute here and see why it's doing that. This is very strange. I've never quite seen this before. I don't know what's going on here. So when I turn this on and off, it doesn't seem to really affect it. But when I actually take and drag the layer out of the document and just delete it, there it goes. I can't really explain that. You might want to try remaking that text layer again, just dragging it out and remaking it and see what that does. And if you find that remaking it with the same font that you have does that again, like so you get the same result, try a different font, like delete the text layer again, try a different font and see if that fixes it. My very best guess, and it's not that's not exactly going to be the right answer, is that there's something with that font file that is causing a kind of a conflict in Photoshop, in the Photoshop file. So that's how I would probably try to problem solve that. I just threw up the black background just to look at the layer masks, and they look really good, very nice. And I like the design. I think it looks it's kind of fun because it's so exaggerated in terms of let me just zoom out a bit here. The head is kind of small and the body's so big, and then it's on these little tiny wheels. I think that looks really kind of, it gives it that sense of contrast, exaggeration. I would say just, the only thing I would work on here, because I would say maybe normally I'm not really talking too much about movement in at this phase because I feel like that's something we can work on later. But in yours, I might consider starting to make the arms move a little bit more, like having them reaching or kind of playing with them a little bit, like to have them outstretched in some way, just to make them look really like arms. Because those are the parts that are going to create the sense of the body in your character, if that makes sense. Right? Because everything else can start to feel a little bit like, an object stacked on another object, right? So the arms, I think, are the thing that's going to animate your character. So I might start playing with that just a tiny bit now. And and just kind of look for that. Is this starting to look like a character at this point that's like going to be able to, live and breathe? If you find that maybe it's not quite working yet, maybe you might want to work on adding some legs. You could think about that. I think you definitely could have that happening in your design. Um, okay, so that's what I'd work on here. The other thing too is, maybe if you're adding legs, then the space is going to change here. But I would also just take and use the crop tool once feel like you're happy with the adjustments, and maybe just kind of remove a little bit of the empty space that you have at the top and the bottom, just to kind of, now your text is going to be somewhere there, just to kind of like frame it a little bit more. And whenever you do that, you're essentially what you're doing is trying to make the space, let's see here. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go the other way. Making the space fit the character, kind of frame it. Okay, all right, good job. You're going in a really good direction as well. And everybody so far has really been doing a good job on the layer masks, so that's fantastic. Okay, Rachel, well, it's interesting because it looks to me like all of your photographs are already starting to have a really nice color harmony, which is something we'll talk about in later weeks because Photoshop makes it really but you kind of have pinks, a little green, a little purple, everything seems to look like it belongs together. So that's great. Okay, so yeah, I think let me just, to me, you've got your layer mask. Let's just check this is really just checking the edges, isn't it? Wow, that looks great. So I would say, just the one thing you just want to add in terms of the requirements is just add the name somewhere. Anywhere on here, Garden Glitter Grace, any text, doesn't matter. We'll work on that later. And then I would say that I think overall your character has a really nice development. It's got this kind of bottom. And I play with that area a little bit more. Uh, with the elements that you have, okay, Tracy, yes. Definitely, it really is about practice. So, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Okay, so let's take a look here. So, I love the tire body. You know, what's nice about the tire body is that it really has a lot of character. Sorry about that, I hit my mic. And form. It's also big and kind of, it's got that kind of globular shape that the torso just kind of, we really start reading it as a torso right away, which is great. And also the legs here look good. I might pick either the bottle or the cable for your arms. In a way that I'm usually always a fan of making, you know, not using cables because they can be kind of light, but I kind of like the way it works with the dark color here and comes out. So I might kind of pick maybe the cable for the head. I would keep experimenting a little bit. I like the tin can, but somehow the eyes are not quite, maybe they need to be a tiny bit bigger. Like sometimes with when the features you have to kind of exaggerate them. Oops, I didn't mean to go all like kind of crazy on that. So like maybe a really big one at the top, you know, put it like a Google, like almost like a maybe like a lobster eye. That's, you know, how they're so big, and maybe you could get something that joined up so it can be like a little kind of on a branch or like a kind of a rubber hose or something, like, you know what I mean, like how those like lobsters have eyes on like little kind of things. I think, is that a lobster? And then I would pick, maybe just make them the same size. So you could maybe you know, on your layer mask here, you could just you know, erase one of these guys just using the paintbrush tool here. Just get rid of that guy and then just duplicate this one. So you have two of the same size. I think that'll make your character, it'll really bring it to life a little bit more. Okay, so that's my suggestions on um, your character itself. The other thing too is I would make it the whole thing a little bit bigger. Like fill the whole, you know, as much as you can of the space. You know, you could just enlarge all of your, just kind of go to each of your elements, just like what I did here, transform it. I'm sorry, I always do it like, so I hit the Control T on my keyboard, that's the transform key. I hold down my Shift key, and then I just enlarge things. I hold down my Shift key because if you don't hold down the Shift, and then you hit the Enter to seal it in, but if you don't hit the Shift key when you're resizing, then things can get wonky because it's not going to be proportionate. So that's, so fill that up. Okay, I think that's the main thing. I think you're for your character design. Let's put on a black background here just to check everything. Okay, that looks good. Yeah, okay, your layer masks look pretty good. Maybe just a little bit around the eye. When you start making things bigger, then you start noticing kind of little elements that you can tweak, and that's totally normal. Um, so maybe let's just take a look at your tire here. Tire, there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. You might want to just kind of go double click here uh, into the refine mask and just kind of go over it with um, the edge detection tool here. Just kind of circle it around, see. So you can see what it didn't actually work very well there. It picked up way too much, so I'm going to undo that. Maybe I'll do the radius tool here and just maybe sort of, so that's kind of also, so I think maybe that selection is about as good as we're going to get. So I would just leave it, you know. It looks pretty good. I just thought maybe there was something we could just tweak it a little bit, but okay, so those are my suggestions. The main thing is I would just keep working on your design a little bit more, make it bigger, and that's going to really make a really positive change for your character. Okay, Brooke, yeah, you know, cotton candy. With that, you can just see, because the more kind of amorphous things are, you know, like the more ambiguous an edge is, the harder it is to select. So I understand that. Citrus fruit for the eye, however, I'm not sure if the eye works or not. Okay, let's take a look at. Okay, so let's just zoom I love all of the triangular shapes, the cones. That's really nice. So the first thing that I would do here is just the first thing I would do here is just to crop this down a little bit. You've seen me do that in other projects, just to kind of frame your character just a wee bit more. Um, and so you can just kind of decide where you want things. But I would make it portrait, portrait style rather than landscape. Uh, Even something, something like that. Okay. And then the second thing is just make sure to put the name maybe down here. Just basic text, doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just grab that text tool and pop it in there. Flippin' Food Fran. Um, okay. So let's see. I think your question was about the eye. Yeah, I would say that you know uh, that you probably don't need this as an eye. Yeah, because we'll start reading this as a head. So, okay, before we talk more about the character, why don't we just check the layer masks? They're looking good here. I can see all the layer masks, I think. Let's just check that here. So just pop that in there. So I would just maybe clean up down here. It looks like the strawberries. Just do that technique that we did in previous ones where you select the layer mask and then you uh, use the paintbrush to paint black onto them. So I would work on that. You know, uh, the cotton candy, I think, is so difficult. You can see here that mask, can you see how it starts to get all kind of gray at the edge? That's because Photoshop is having a hard time figuring it out. So I would consider, let's just take this black off. I don't think we need to have this anymore. Um, I would consider, finding something else for the cotton candy. Just remember, if you like the pink color or the whitish, the pastel colors of cotton candy, whatever you choose, you can change that later so you can make something. So maybe something made out of food that would create that hair look, you know, uh, and maybe work with that. So I would do that. I would do that with all of the cotton candy here because I just think it's just it's make you always want nice crisp edges in Photoshop. I think the cinnamon sticks look great. Those are beautiful. They work really well with the textures here, and this little ruffle at the bottom looks really cute. I might make your candy canes a tiny bit bigger just to give them a little more visual weight. And those I think are the main things here. I would just kind of keep playing with your character just a bit more. And the layer masks, add the name, and I think you should be in good shape. Page. All right. So I love your washing machine. I think that's such a good body type for, like the torso. I like the angle. It looks really good. Let's just double check first of all your layer masks. They're looking pretty good. Yeah. Um, yeah. So let's see here. I would say so. Just make sure you put your name in here. Just pop that in there somewhere here. But I think I like the placement on the page. That looks really good. I love this element. The traffic cone is such a great element. It's got these wonderful like shapes and color. One thing I would work on here is maybe choosing the same element for the arms, like either the crutches or the traffic cone. Same thing here. Like choose the same element for the arms and legs, just basically like what we've been talking about in terms of symmetry. I think that's going to make it a much more symmetrical item. So like, for example, if we just take your traffic cone here and duplicate it and bring it over here, rotate it. So you can see already that it just creates, we can actually also, I think, bring it up at the top. I think in your case, it could actually be on top of the object because it's got this kind of base on it that allows it to kind of stick onto it. But anyhow, so you can do whatever you want in terms of objects. It just seems that has a lot of good visual weight too. Maybe just again to create more symmetry, choose the same legs. For the head, I love the idea of the TV, but there's something about I feel like maybe it's getting too detailed and it's too small of an item. This mop is such a cute element. It actually might read as a really cute head. I don't know if you thought about that, but or something else, but maybe like just I always like to see, what can I do with the elements that I have. Sometimes you can end up with great solutions that way. So like just kind of even flipping this and making it like on a natural little neck on there, maybe you could change the size, so it's kind of really, it's kind of pretty cute. Anyhow, just some ideas here, but I think the main thing at this point is getting things layer masked and then just, experimenting a little bit more with your character, making sure you add your name, and I think you'll be ready to move on to week 4 as well, where we're going to just continue working on the characters in terms of the design. So this is really just phase 1. All right, everybody, I talked a lot in this. I'll try to keep the future critiques a little bit shorter, but I always have so much to say about them. Everyone's, I think, really off to a good start on this. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing, so I'm looking forward to the next round.